Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. My name is Scott Morgan, off the Motor City Madmouth, alongside of David Levin. How you doing tonight, David?
Hey, how you guys doing tonight? Everybody doing all right?
Doing great, and alongside of Levin is Rick Curti. Rick Curti, how you doing up in Carolina?
Hey, guys, how are you?
Oh, we're doing real good.
How's it going, Rick?
Looking forward to talking some baseball. We're going to have a couple of unique topics here, and then Mr. Curti might even devise a rant within this broadcast, okay? But first thing that we're going to go ahead and talk about is changes that could happen because of realignment with the permanent DH situation. David, you lead off because I have a feeling Curti's going to be ranting on this one.
Okay, great. Today, we understand that there is a potential for a proposal that will get players back to spring training facilities and the possibility of Major League Baseball actually playing games that matter by July 1. I have talked to Scott several times about this, that there are things that will come out of change because of what we've done with the work stoppage because of the coronavirus that are going to affect Major League Baseball this season and possibly permanently. Rick, I thought about it that there is definitely a belief that there's going to be a DH that's going to be used based on the realignment of teams throughout the American and National League because of where they're going to play games. Mm-hmm. And I was curious what you would think about the fact of it happening this year because out of necessity, because you're going to have American and National League teams playing each other, and then the possibility of it being something that becomes permanent and basically breaks the tradition of the National League having the pitcher hit in the ninth spot.
So what do I think about it?
Yes.
I hate the DH. I've always hated the DH. I wish they would get rid of the DH. I want to see the pitchers hit. I prefer National League better, mostly because they don't have a DH. So they don't need to add the DH. They need to get rid of the DH in both leagues. So that's what I think of the DH.
Okay, Scott, I love this guy already. That's the best answer I've ever heard. Scott and I have talked about this. I'm a traditionalist. I'm a National League guy. I grew up watching the Braves, and although I am a Cubs fan from my youth and whatnot, but there is something about the purity of baseball, and when they decided to add the designated hitter to the American League, part of Major League Baseball lost its soul.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to help teams that are fundamentally sound but not home run hitting teams, such as the Marlins or the Detroit Tigers or the bottom feeders who don't produce enough runs. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not in my DNA to like it. But I also think it's going to lead to other things, such as the realignment that we're talking about. Have you had a chance to read any of the proposals of the realignment plans?
Well,
no, I haven't. Okay.
Okay. Scott, you want to jump in here with the different proposals?
Well, I want to talk about the DH for a minute first. I grew up with the Detroit Tigers, and, for the first, say, 15 years of my life, I had the purity part of the whole thing. And when the DH came in, I understood the reasons for doing it. Doesn't necessarily I agreed with the idea. I'm like you guys, okay? I like the pitcher hitting. And I like the pitcher hitting for a lot of reasons. One, ever heard of the old thing called a pitcher helping his own cause?
Yes.
Yeah, well, that to me is something that I've always loved about it. Number two, when you talk about pitchers hitting another player, obviously you have a little bit of backlash where the other one's going to retaliate, but let's see if that happens. If you have two pitchers hitting, who's going to go after who? You follow me?
I would kill to see two pitchers go after each other. That would be so amazing.
Well, but still, I mean, if you're going to hit, you're going to throw at my guy, then the other guy has a reason to throw back at you or the other player. So it's just the way it goes. So it's trying to police the hit by a pitch, but the question is, how do you do it? So, but I've always been a proponent where let's help your own cause. You're having an opportunity to go out there and, you're struggling on the mound a little bit, or you do that bunt that you really need to try to get things going. So, I'm with you guys. I prefer to keep the DH out of there. And the National League Baseball is better. There's a lot more strategy involved and double switches and so forth. So I'm with you guys. It's pretty hard to disagree with that.
The intricacy of baseball, and this is, again, something that Scott and I have talked about. There's a purity to it, Rick, that no other sport has. The double switches, how you plan your bullpen for, late innings, who's pitching against which hitter. The days of when Smalls will go after Barry Bonds with his heater in the bottom of the ninth. Those type of things are what make baseball so great. I think you lose a lot when you add another batter, definitely to the lineup. Granted, people love coming to watch the long ball, and
I don't.
Baseball. I'm sorry.
I don't.
I'm sorry.
I hate home runs.
That's why I really like him. You're a rarity because chicks dig the long ball, and so do fans, because that's why they come. They come to see the home run.
Yeah.
I just think I'm more of a pure strategist. I think it's great seeing a 2-1 game where it's a defensive, juggernaut, and somebody like Ozzie Smith from years ago is making a defensive play to save the game.
Yeah.
That's just it's one of the weirder reasons why I'm against it. But I like Scott, and you're right, Scott. There's a reason for it, and whatever that reason, it's going to carry over this year. I can't see them making changes to alignment and games played and trying to work the schedule out without, I guess, inventing the designated hitter for the National League teams.
Now, I can see where the designator through the years has helped players extend their careers. Edgar Martino's really good at it. A guy I watched in the initial role was Willie Horton. Miguel Cabrera's now having it, Victor Martinez, David Ortiz. So, you have guys that simply, to me, have bad wheels and they can't play in the field. And as a result, they're trying to prolong their career. I mean, I see both sides. But again, to me, it's just not what baseball was brought up. But nowadays, with all the rule changes that they've had, will anybody recognize what the great American pastime really is? Because I'm still trying to get familiar with the numerous changes they're going to make later on, such as the 3-batter minimum and all the speeding up the game rules. But that'll be for another broadcast. But, the designator hitter has saved a lot of careers. It really has. But when you break down the logistics of both, will it ever become a universal rule? It is in the minor leagues, however. It really is. So
Right.
So now,
and that's kind of different. We're here in Jacksonville with the Jumbo Shrimp, which is the Marlins affiliate. I'm seeing the designated hitter, more often than not. So I'm seeing 9 guys hit while Joe Pitcher sitting there waiting his turn to get back on the mound, and then I see the benefit of it because, granted, they need arms and they want to see what they're doing on the mound more than they want to see them doing in the batter's box. The designated hitter helps teams like the Marlins because they only had 146 home runs last year. They were second to last in the league to Detroit in runs scored. I don't need to bury you with statistics about it, but for teams like that, adding another bat helps. I just don't like it. And that's the bottom line. Sorry.
Oh, it's not a matter of burying. When you're dealing with stats, you're not burying anybody. The numbers bear themselves out. We know the best stat man that we've ever had on our network who couldn't have had enough of them, but got to give the kid credit. He did his research, and at a time like that, that's when this stat would become even more so relevant. But yeah, it is what it is. I mean, to me though, Rick was talking to me earlier today about some of the better hitting pitchers. Rick, why don't you say a bunch of them?
Please.
Oh, I remember when Fernando, when the Dodgers used Fernando as a pinch hitter. That was great. He was a great hitter. I remember Mike Hampton, especially when he was in Colorado and Coors Field. I remember Bob Forsch, when he was at the Cardinals. One time he had a 444 batting average. There's been so many during the Braves success. I remember Glavine, I remember Smoltz, and I remember Great Max. Great Max was a sensational athlete. Not only was he a great pitcher, but he was a terrific athlete. And those guys took pride in their hitting. They had contests of who had better batting averages and things like that. And so they took pride in being up there. They didn't go up there and just bunt or try to move runners or strike out and look bad. They actually took pride in what they did. So, my thing is, if you're on the field, you should bat. And I just think the DH is just a gimmick to me. And I just think, like you said, people want to see the long ball. I don't. I'd rather see a 1-0, a 2-1 complete game, 95 pitch game than a 15 to 20 home run and the bat flips and all. I mean, it's ridiculous, and all these 500-foot home runs everybody want to hit, and it's like, who cares? It's still going to be one run. And so, the DH is great. I mean, the hitting, seeing the pitchers pitch is great, and the DH, I just prefer National League better than the American League. So I just think the DH is just a gimmick to see home runs.
David, I got to say this. How many pitchers would actually go to Colorado to pitch like Mike Hampton did? And, and hit home runs the way that he did. I mean, that's unbelievable. But Mike Hampton wanted to hit, and what better way to go ahead and hit than to play out over a Coors Field in that high altitude where the air is quite thin. So, and now, David, do you remember that commercial with Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox?
6-stick long ball.
Yeah, right.
It's one of the great. Candy gets it, yes.
Yeah, go ahead. That's okay. Reflect on what you remember out of that commercial, David.
Well, it's funny because they were talking about Mark McGwire in his heyday, smacking balls all over the field and knocking the ball out of the yard in St. Louis, which turned out to be the scam of all time. But they wanted, to bulk up and create more drama and bring fans to it, because they were still trying to draw people back to the stadiums. Remember, because allegedly the home run race helped bring baseball back to the masses. So they were taking that as a side and saying, well, pitchers want in on it too. It's a great commercial. It was a great gimmick, and it worked very well. Because honestly, Tom Glavine was this skinny kid coming up through the minors. I mean, he was all arms and all, and he played hockey, which was kind of weird because he was so thin and skinny.
Yeah.
I believe he was a fourth-round pick of the Boston Bruins years ago.
You're right, yeah.
Also, Scott, real quick, was it Rick Roden who used to smack the ball all over the yard for the Pirates? And he was one of the best hitting pitchers of all time.
David, I think you're right.
And also, didn't Tony La Russa fiddle with lineups where he would actually have the catcher batting ninth and he would have the pitcher actually eighth, so he could strategize late in games how to pitch hit?
Well, Tony La Russa did a lot of things, David. You know that.
That was weird.
Yeah, Tony La Russa wasn't afraid to go ahead and, do whatever he had to do. I mean, I think it's a great strategy if you can hit the catcher ninth and then the pitcher, because, that's interesting when I think about it. Rick, what do you think about hitting having a guy hitting, the pitcher hitting eighth and then somebody behind him?
I think it's great. I remember that happening, and so there are a lot of great hitting pitchers when I was growing up. I mean, I remember Tom Browning's another one, great pitcher. He was also another great hitting pitcher as well. So I remember when Tony La Russa did that, and I thought it was great. Like, why not? And I think it kind of confuses the other teams as well, because they're expecting the pitcher to bat, and you're like, wait, he's batting eighth, and so it kind of messes up their strategy. So I think it's more like a psychological strategy thing than anything else. But I think it's great. Like, let's throw him off a little bit. Why not?
Well, we all know that.
He's also.
We all know that baseball is a game full of mind games, anyways.
It's one of the best chess matches there is.
Yeah,
for sure. And you've also also opened the door about the fact about how old we all are, remembering all this stuff from the 70s and 80s.
Well, that's true. We can appreciate what it was like a long, long time ago. We really can. And when you look at how it's all changed, to me, I think that's just what it's all about. I mean, how many more changes can you really inflict anyways?
I think you're going to see, and because of technology, because players are bigger, stronger, faster, similar to like all sports, there's going to be more change. Baseball has resisted as much as anybody in trying to get away from the purity of the way it is. You're going to see it's going to happen at some point, and I hope it doesn't, but realistically, it's going to become an issue. They're launching baseballs out of parks faster than they ever have. The Minnesota Twins hit 300 home runs last year, which was like unheard of. The National League is going to want to play catch up at some point. The pitching in the National League is better, but it's not better to the point where it's a 2-to-1, significant advantage. So at some point there will have to be a line of demarcation where everything is balanced, and that's the best way I see it.
Okay. Any more on this DH, Rick? Do you want anything to it?
Get rid of it. Commissioner Manfred, get rid of it. We don't need it. It sucks. I hate it. Get rid of it. Don't add it. Get rid of it.
Well, I think the amazing part about it is, and we're leading to the division, this is, if there's ever a year where they can go ahead and experiment with any gimmick that they want, they're definitely going to try to do it this year, because we all know 2020 will be anything but normal.
They have to do it, Scott. If you think about it, people are excited about the possibility of baseball coming back.
Right.
At the same time, too, they're not going to be able to go to the games to begin with. They may not be able to go to the games at all. So Major League Baseball is going to have to do whatever it can from a marketing standpoint, because they're losing millions of dollars. They're losing fans. I know that watching KBO, at all hours of the night is a pacifier right now. But I'm hoping while this is all going on and they're planning for the return, that marketing strategists are huddled together in some room saying, oh my gosh, what are we going to do to make sure we turn a profit once this all comes to fruition?
Yeah, well, they're going to have to take a hit. So while they're taking a hit, they're going to just take chances of what they're going to do. And again, this is an experimental season for a lot of different ways. So what you see in 2020 won't be what you like, God willing, in 2021 for sure. So, but anyway.
Yes, God, it would be amazing. It would be amazing if the Detroit Tigers and the Miami Marlins are playing in the World Series because of this.
Well, okay. Let's see. How do I say this? You really got me through a curveball here. Yes, that pun is intended. No.
I tried hard.
Yeah, you did.
Yeah.
Yeah, and yet, ironically, I'll probably be the guy who's a Marlins writer more so than the Tigers because of our association with the South Florida Tribune.
Oh, definitely, I know.
As long as the Marlins got rid of that hideous statue in center field.
I think they did, actually.
God, that thing was hideous.
Rick, one of the cool things about Derek Jeter becoming the owner was one of the things that he said was, I want to make coming to the game a destination, where it's not necessarily the baseball is important, but they wanted people to come and enjoy the food and the atmosphere, and it's South, it's South Florida, and it's a Latin flavor and all this stuff. And the first thing he did was he took that damn statue out.
Yeah, he did.
Thank God.
The second thing he did was
I think that's the only good thing Derek Jeter's done since being the owner of the Marlins.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
But you know what, Rick? I hate to tell you this, buddy. Derek Jeter is going to do a good job with the Marlins. I really do.
Yeah.
And I think Don Mattingly is actually the right manager.
I love Mattingly. I'm a huge Mattingly fan.
Yes, I'm a huge fan.
I would sell Jeter short. I wouldn't.
Well, we'll see.
Yeah, we will.
I'm not sold on him. Sorry.
No, Rick has a point, Scott. Rick has a point, and I understand it. I think I do. I'm going to assume you're thinking of Derek Jeter, the player, not Derek Jeter, the entrepreneur and owner, right?
As a matter of fact, you're wrong, and I'll tell you why. He was brought up with the Yankees system. He saw how they built the thing through the draft and the farm system. So I think he actually gets it this time, not the player, but I have a gut feeling, and it's only a gut feeling. If I'm wrong, it won't be the first time, and it won't be the last time, and I'll admit on the air that I was dead wrong. But I have a gut feeling that I don't know how long it'll take him to do it, but Derek Jeter had to unload some big contracts, and he's trying to build within the farm system, and the Marlins' revenue streams are not great either, let alone playing in a stadium which is beautiful but in the wrong part of town.
Right. And those are things that you and I have talked about before.
Right.
He has a plan. And I was kind of gearing that more towards Rick. That I was curious, as to his notion that it doesn't work, at least with Jeter, or the fact that he's, doing this. So I was just curious why you're not on board with that.
I'm thinking about the statistics of superstars being owners. Magic Johnson, Michael Jordan, and I know all about Michael Jordan here in Charlotte. Great player, horrific owner. The only successful great player that transitioned was Jerry West. He's like the only one. Well, I could think Larry Bird did great too, but I mean, Jerry West. I mean, he's the logo for Pete's sakes. And then he, of course, he was the architect for the Lakers. Then he went to the Warriors. And look at the Clippers. I mean, the Clippers, they were a laughing stock when I lived in Los Angeles. I mean, they were the Cleveland Browns. Nobody wanted to go see a Clipper game. Yeah, and now look at how good they became. So I'm just looking at the statistics of that. And a lot of these great players, it's just hard for them to look at players that are not as talented, as good as a Derek Jeter or a Michael Jordan or a Magic Johnson. They can't comprehend that. And so I just don't think he's going to be a great owner. I just don't. Well, that's just my opinion. And if I'm wrong about it, I'll go on here and say, Mr. Jeter, I apologize. Please don't hurt me. But that's just my opinion right now. And I know he's got a long way to go, but I just don't see it happening.
Well, Joe Dumars did a good job with the Pistons. The biggest gaffe they ever made was not drafting Carmelo Anthony over Darko Milicic. But I'll tell you what, Joe Dumars did a great job, great player, who ended up becoming a great executive and led the Pistons to a couple of titles. Where he led them to a title, but they were very relevant during his time, in the front office. So, but yeah, they are far and few between. I'll give you that, Rick. Magic Johnson definitely didn't succeed in that role.
Right.
Jordan obviously hasn't succeeded in that role.
Never will.
No, I don't think so. I don't think he wants to spend the money. He's more concerned about turning a profit.
He wants a bunch of yes men telling him what a wonderful job he's doing and telling him that you're Michael Jordan, you're the greatest, and that's all he wants. He just wants to own a team and wants a bunch of people telling him how wonderful he is.
Well, he'll do it there.
I'll say this. Wow. I'll say this about Jeter, and I was like you, Rick, where when he took over the team and he ruffled feathers, and he got rid of Jeff Conine and told Jack McKeon to hit the door and say bye-bye to Andre Dawson, and then decided to fire the guy who was the mascot and made really stupid decisions, and then decided to trade all these players away. I was as furious as everybody else, not just as a writer, but as a fan. There's something about loyalty and whatnot, and I'm thinking to myself, this Joker's not going to make it. And then he traded away, Giancarlo Stanton. He traded away Marcelo Ozuna, and he traded away Christian Yelich, by the way, which is the worst trade that will ever be in Marlins history.
Mm-hmm. Well, what about Miguel Cabrera? That worked out for us in Detroit.
But that wasn't him.
That's true. It wasn't him.
Yeah. Right. But also, Jeffrey Loria didn't give a damn about the Marlins. He had the team, and he ghosted them. He let them rip apart the minor league system. Dave Sampson was a terrible president. They did everything they could to rip the soul of Marlins fans down there who were crying for a winner. And then Jeter comes in with the smile and the rock star look and all this, and everybody's thinking, oh, we're going to be fine. And then he started to do the same thing. But he did it because he knew that although we had a bunch of players that were successful, Stan, Yelich, Ozuna, JT Realmuto, before his death, Jose Fernandez, they weren't winning. They were a bunch of individuals who were succeeding, but they were succeeding on their own. So he tore everything down and is now laying it brick by brick. That pitching staff's going to be Atlanta Brave-ish, if I can use that word,
sure, in
the next 2 years. It's going to be like the Atlanta Braves without a Maddox on the roster. That is a really good pitching staff. The middle of the lineup, that's going to be very strong. Brian Anderson is going to be a perennial all-star within the next year or two. They did the right thing by playing chess backwards, so to speak. And it will pay off. And I agree with you, Scott. It's going to be 2 or 3 years, but they're going to be major contenders for a while.
I think so. And the Tigers are trying to follow suit, too, by rebuilding
right.
and having foundational players. But that's just what happens when you have a rebuild. Sometimes it can be quite painful, but if you do succeed with a rebuild, then you've set your franchise ahead 5 or 10 years. So it's just part of the way the game is nowadays. The Boston Red Sox are headed down a bad road, too. That's
yes.
But that'll be for another broadcast. So sometimes you're in stages where you're up and down, and I think that things will spiral upward for the Tigers and the Marlins, but meanwhile, Boston could be headed down a very dangerous road. So let's talk about our next thing here, the 3 divisions in the MLB parks laid out with 10 teams. I'm going to go over the divisions. Obviously, David, you and I did the Cactus League, and we did the Grapefruit League, but now we have a unique dynamic and some interesting rivalries from within these divisions, even though I know that this is a one-year scenario. But we'll lead off with the East. You got Baltimore, Boston, Miami, the Mets, the Yankees, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Tampa Bay, Toronto, and Washington. Now, here's what's ironic about Toronto and Washington. Washington used to be the former Montreal Expos, and you had Toronto. So let's talk about the rivalries within that division, at least for 1 year.
Who wants to go first? Can we go, Rick?
You can go. I don't mind.
Okay. I really like the Miami. First of all, I really like the Miami-Tampa Bay connection. I figure that they should play more often anyway. I like the idea of the Yankees and the Mets playing, and I like Pittsburgh and basic rivalries that should be there: Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Miami, Tampa, Toronto, and Washington. And by the way, the Expos did win the World Series last year. For all of us that rooted for the Expos in '94, all those things that went on. But I really enjoy the idea. Number one, this has a really nice Eastern flavor to it. It's got a nice Atlantic Ocean type of thing. We've got teams that could surprise you. I know Tampa Bay is a really good team. The Yankees are going to be strong this year. Philadelphia may surprise you. Washington has the World Series. I agree with Scott that Boston is going to be one of those teams that's going to plummet. And maybe, just maybe, the Marlins have enough Novocaine in them that they don't know any better and can shock people. I really like this division.
What's interesting about it, too, though, when I think about spring training in South Florida, David, you grew up with it. You had Baltimore training at Miami Stadium. Then you had the Miami Marlins at Miami Stadium. And now you had the Florida Marlins beating the New York Yankees, who, by the way, were in Fort Lauderdale. So when you talk about some of those interesting matchups from within, let alone the state rivalries that are built within, I think it's pretty interesting stuff. Now, if you have Miami and Tampa, it'll be the battle of the I don't draw anyway, so now you have nobody in those stadiums anyway, so it's not a big deal. And I know, like, Curti likes some...
Tampa will win those games, and Miami will say, we don't care, we have a better stadium than you.
Yeah, well, that's about it, too. Curti likes to be a raised basher is what he likes to be, so this would give him another reason to go ahead and bash him, right, Rick?
I mean, just looking at the, history, and they can't even set up the World Series. So what's that tell you? So, and I feel bad for the Rays. I love the Rays. I've been wanting the Rays to come to Charlotte if you're going to get a team to relocate. So I love Tampa Bay. They're a great team. And they don't get the appreciation they deserve, and it's just unfortunate they play in the dump of a stadium, and it's unfortunate that they play. They don't play in Tampa Bay. They play in St. Petersburg, and
right.
They're not coming, and they can't even sell out the World Series. And how many players went on Twitter and said, "Man, it sucks when you play in front of 12,000 people, and
right.
and nobody comes see you. We're number one in our division, and there's like nobody here, and they need a new stadium. That stadium is." It reminds me of the Metrodome. I hate the Metrodome. It's really that little baggy, and I hated that stadium. And that's what Tropicana Field reminds me. It reminds me of the modern-day version of the Metrodome.
Yeah, well, I actually saw a few games at Tropicana Field. I think baseball could succeed in Tampa Bay as long as it's in Hillsborough County on the Tampa side. It's pro sports has proven to do well in Hillsborough County, not in a place like St. Petersburg. The my version of Cocoon and Morrison's Cafeteria,
Yeah, that's a great analogy.
Yeah, well, let me expound on that Morrison's Cafeteria. When I was working at the Tampa Tribune many years ago, I went in there before a high school game, and I'll tell you, I was the only one with brown hair in that place. The rest of them were, they were definitely senior citizens. Respect your elders, especially when you're the only one with brown hair eating with them before a high school football game. So draw whatever
I'm really not.
you want.
I'm not commenting at all. I'm not saying anything about the hair.
I don't know. Is Morrison's Cafeteria still open out there? I don't think so.
I don't think there are any more of those anymore. I'll tell you what about Tampa Bay. It would succeed in Hillsborough County. I'm in agreement with you. But I also think that's the type of place, because of the beauty of the area, right. It has to be a retractable stadium, retractable roofs.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Similar to what Miami has done. And by the way, I was at one of the World Series games, and you're right, it was hideous. I got a ticket with a friend late, and we got to go, and I had never been. And I was thinking, this is just disgusting. And it's a World Series game, for goodness sakes. And the problem, too, is that they're not drawing from Orlando. They're not drawing from Jacksonville. They're not drawing from other areas of the state that they should. It's a bad marketing system as well, in addition to a bad location.
Well, the only place I think a stadium in Tampa could succeed is right next to Raymond James Stadium. There was a talk that they were going to build that stadium over there, and then St. Petersburg built theirs ahead of time, and Tampa said, all right, you can have them if you really want them that bad. We all know how that works out. I know Curti will satirize it from here all the way to the end of time, right? Okay, so go.
Yeah, I don't understand whoever decided that putting a team in St. Petersburg and not Tampa next to where the Buccaneers play, or it's just, that's crazy. It doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, I can even see it in Orlando. Isn't the one of the owners of the Orlando Magic trying to bring a Major League Baseball team to Orlando called the Dreamers? Yeah,
Pat Williams, who found who was one of the original owners and principal owners and general manager of the Orlando Magic, came up with this idea to try and pitch Major League Baseball with the Orlando whatever.
The Dreamers. The Orlando Dreamers called them.
I don't see it working. Never say never, but I don't see it working. I'm assuming that he wants to work on expansion. And help me out here a little bit, guys, because I'm not as familiar with basketball as far as the area in Orlando. There's plenty of area to put a baseball stadium. They already have ABC World Sports, and they've got decent stadium size, and I just don't see it happening in Central Florida. There's just too much going on that it's either going to be a boom or bust. For the most part, the Orlando Magic have been very successful as far as bringing the crowds in, but for a while, they were in the doldrums too, where they were having problems drawing just because the team was so terrible.
Exactly. Yeah. Now, the only place... See, I know they talked about a stadium in Ybor City. I'm not sold on that locale. I think the only place they can do it is right near Raymond James and where the Yankees are at. Otherwise, I don't know of a ideal location that would make sense. But I guess we'll find out as time goes on. Because I know one thing, that lease is up is in 2027. And if I think in that particular case, if they don't have one there and Montreal has a stadium, hello, welcome back Montreal Expos.
Yeah.
There'll be a point where urgency comes into play. Quick.
Putting a stadium in Ybor City would have the same kind of effect as putting Marlins Park where it is now.
Exactly.
It's in a bad location.
Oh yeah.
And you'd have the same suffering fans there. It's hard, and I don't know what the dynamic is in Tampa, but Miami is not technically a sports town. Everybody goes there for other things, and if your team is successful, like the Heat has been lately, then people stick around to watch. But if your team is not doing well, there's plenty of other things that Miami offers that takes your attention away.
Right.
The one thing that Tampa has, they have the Lightning. And if the Lightning are successful, great. If people want sports, then usually go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So I wonder what happens with building a new stadium. Does it generate the same kind of excitement that it would for any other sport?
I don't know. You got two successful teams in Tampa with the Buccaneers and the Lightning. I actually thought the Orlando idea wouldn't be bad, but we'll see. But all right, let's go on to we've got a couple more divisions, and then we'll wrap up the broadcast. But we'll definitely have a lot of time for each of these two. All right, the Central Division, you have the Atlanta Braves, Chicago Cubs, Chicago White Sox, Cincinnati Reds, Cleveland Indians, Detroit Tigers, Kansas City Royals, the Milwaukee Brewers, the Minnesota Twins, and the St. Louis Cardinals. So let's talk about the rivalries from within. You have three teams off of I-75 in Atlanta, Cincinnati, and Detroit. And I remember taking that drive many, many times, seeing each of those stadiums. Of course, we have the Cubbies and the White Sox. And then you have the Cincinnati Reds and Cleveland Indians, who actually share a spring training facility in Arizona. And, of course, Kansas City Royals, who used to be located many years ago in Fort Myers. And, of course, the Milwaukee Brewers, Minnesota Twins, and St. Louis. So you got a potential rivalry with Kansas City and St. Louis, who played in a World Series before, for which the Royals won it. You have the Milwaukee Brewers, whose lone World Series appearance was in 1982 when they were actually a part of the American League. But then you have Milwaukee and Detroit as a natural rivalry. Milwaukee and Minnesota as a natural rivalry. And, of course, you can tell by the Big Ten. So Milwaukee has a lot of interesting rivalries from within. They used to play against the White Sox, and now they get the Cubs. So, and don't forget the Atlanta Braves, Milwaukee Braves. So there's a lot of interesting, unique dynamics in this particular division. All right, David, you lead off this time.
One thing that I noticed about that one when I was doing homework earlier, yes, Scott made me do homework, Rick. I do plenty of it when I was to keep him on his toes. What I noticed, though, too, when I looked at that is almost, and yes, there's a rival between Milwaukee and Atlanta because of the Braves connection. But Atlanta looks like it's the odd man out and the sore thumb in all of this because of the Midwestern flavor to it, the White Sox and the Cubs and Detroit, Milwaukee and St. Louis, and all these teams that you would think would be playing each other on a regular basis. And the Braves may have the best team of everybody in that division.
Well, I don't know where else you'd put the Braves based on this scenario, do you?
I would have thought they would have been in the East. I really do.
Well, I do too, but then who would you move from the East over to the Central?
Yeah, you can't.
Exactly.
You can't. It's kind of like, Scott, it's like the Indianapolis Colts being in the AFC South.
Right.
Yeah, somebody has to take a hit. So the Braves are it.
Well, yeah, but there's a lot of interesting rivalries within. I remember when you and I did the Cactus League and the Grapefruit League, how we had a field day with that one. But it
was great, yeah.
Yeah, you have some unique dynamics here. I think St. Louis is probably the best baseball city of the group. Detroit, when they're on, are a great baseball city. And then you have a lot of small markets from within, with the exception of the Cubs, and maybe, I don't know if you classify the Braves as a smart market town. So, I don't know. But continue to elaborate, David.
I think this has a lot of potential for a team that may not be considered a contender to come out of it. What if the White Sox are going to be better this year? What if they're the ones? What if Milwaukee, with Christian Yelich returning from injury, is able to take the next step? I like it because it's almost a how do I say this? It has an old-style feel to it, that these teams are going to scratch and claw and beat up on each other. And if it were a full 162-game season, that's the kind of division where 87, 88 games may win it. I think you're going to see a lot of teams just beat the hell out of each other. That type of scenario.
Interesting points, David. All right, Rick, go ahead. What's your opinion on that?
Well, I like the rivalries in all the division. I think it's great to see the Cubs and to see the White Sox. That should be fun. And I like seeing the Midwest connections with the with the Cardinals, and you see him with the Brewers, and all. You see a lot of small market teams, and I agree. I think Atlanta's the odd man out, but I mean they're the only like true team from the South. I really don't think of Florida and Texas as really the South. Technically it is, but I mean the true Southern team is Atlanta, and they're always going to be out. So they're the best team in that division, but I mean. I see all those rivalries. I think they're going to be fun. So I kind of like the way they constructed it, and it's like growing up here in Los Angeles. I always like seeing the Dodgers and Angels in a rivalry. We used to call it the Freeway Series, and unfortunately, we didn't have interleague play when I was growing up. So, but now with interleague play, you can see all that stuff. So I think they did a good job putting the divisions together. I think they did a good job trying to build some excitement. Of some great rivalries there. So I think they did a good job constructing it. So we'll see what happens if we have a baseball season or not, but it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think the Cubs could be headed on the downside as well. You have a new manager in David Ross, and Joe Maddon's out to the West, which we'll get to in a moment. So, and then I think meanwhile the White Sox are steadily improving with their rebuild, and I'm not sure exactly where Cleveland's at. All I know is Terry Francona's there. You never count him out. And I think Cincinnati's made some pretty good moves. And Detroit, well, they're still rebuilding, as is Kansas City. And the Milwaukee Brewers, to me, are one of the most interesting teams because they lost some players, but you locked up a cornerstone. And, of course, the Minnesota Twins can definitely hit the ball out of the park. And St. Louis, so Minnesota, St. Louis, and Atlanta, I think, could be the class of that division. And and then the rest, it remains to be seen, depending on how their rebuilds turn out and how quickly they start to play out a little bit. So any other comments on the Central Division?
No, I'm good.
What about you, Rick?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. Well, all right, we'll go on to the final division, one that Rick Curti's all too familiar with, the West. Back then, you had the Arizona Diamondbacks, Mike Hampton's old team, the Colorado Rockies, where, all you need to do is hit your balls a mile high. And, of course, the Houston Asterisks.
Asterisks. The cheaters, the Houston Cheaters.
Right, them Asterisks. Then you have the Dodgers and the Angels, which you didn't have back then, but you have it now. And then you have the
Freeway Series.
Right. Then you have the Battle of the Bay with Oakland and San Francisco. Then you got San Diego, Seattle, and Tejas, Texas. So, all right. Rick, you go ahead and break down this division a little bit for us, please.
Oh, I love seeing the Angels and Dodgers. They hate each other, too, which makes it great because I remember when the Angels were just joking around and said, you know what, we're going to be called the Los Angeles Angels, which they used to be called when he first came. I grew up when they were the California Angels, and they got into a big fight, and the Dodgers were going to sue them, and Art Moreno goes, you know what, we're going to keep it. So they had to make a deal and say, we'll just call ourselves the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim. So I think it's kind of fun. I think it's kind of great. And, you can imagine Mike Trout at Dodger Stadium or seeing Pujols at Dodger Stadium and like that. I think that's great. I think it's a lot of fun. So I like that rivalry a lot. And like I said, we'll see what happens if we have a Major League Baseball season. We don't know yet. So, but I think they just did a really good job in all these divisions to put a lot of rivalries. And, they need to bring the fans back. They need to bring a lot of excitement back. And having two states that hate each other, I think it's a lot of fun. It brings a lot of excitement. I know all about those crazy divisions with the Giants and Dodgers who absolutely detest each other. And so I think it's going to be a lot of, if we have a season, I think it's going to be a lot of fun baseball. And maybe they'll make this permanent divisions because I think it's a lot of fun.
Go ahead, David.
First of all, Rick, we got to think of the positive when we have a major league season. I do believe that there's going to be a season. I believe, though, that it's only going to be 80 to 100 games. Scott and I talked about that a couple of weeks ago when we were talking about realignment and what was going to happen. I like this division, too. I love the fact that two teams from Los Angeles can, spit fire and vinegar at each other and see what happens. I like the fact that you could see Arizona and Colorado going at it again. The Oakland A's are kind of interesting to me because then they get to play San Diego and San Francisco and Los Angeles, both Los Angeles teams, it makes for interesting baseball because there are 5 teams within the state that get to play each other. I like the idea that Oakland and San Francisco play more consistent baseball. We know about the World Series. I think that was, 89? So they have some history there. That was the earthquake World Series, wasn't it, Scott?
Yep, absolutely. Good memory.
Yeah. Yes, and I think that you're gonna see. I know that you're going to see a lot of venom towards Houston no matter what happens, because they got some pitchers in this division that throw some real heat. I can't wait to see Clayton Kershaw on the mound facing the Houston Astros and seeing what happens, because you know that there's going to be some players that are going to get plunked.
You think?
This is a knockdown drag out type of division. I agree with Rick.
Yeah, a lot of fun. You need boxing gloves for this division. It's going to be fun.
No kidding.
See what happens with the Astros. And I've been very vocal about the Astros, what should happen to them. I mean, they got off so light. It's a joke. So they're the most hated team in all of baseball, easily. And they were supposed to go on this little parade about, we're sorry, please forgive us, and it turned into this defensive, into, well, we cheated, but we didn't really cheat that badly, and everyone else does it, so nah. And it's just they're hated, and it's going to be fun. And I think everybody wants to take their turns punking the Astros. So it's they're the only ones that probably don't want to see a baseball season right now. So
right.
Well, when you look,
let me ask you this, Ricky.
That's all right. No, that's okay. Go ahead and ask him.
Let me ask you this, because I understand that there's still a possibility that we're not going to play baseball.
Yeah.
Are you more concerned that we are going to play it, or are you more concerned that we're not going to play it? And I was wondering why.
I don't see any sports this year, period. No football. I don't see college. I don't see baseball. This thing is bad. And with all the traveling that's going on, Florida just got massive spikes of this because the governor opened up everything up. And, Texas had massive spikes of this. North Carolina's had massive spikes. This thing is so out of control right now. And I think if you have a season and if they bring fans back, you're going to have a lot of fans who are not going to go. I think we're going to have a lot of athletes who don't want to go. They're like, I'm not going to travel with this thing still hanging around where I can get sick and expose it to everybody. So I think that's the danger zone to all this. So I just think there's not going to be any sports, period. And to play it in empty stadiums, to me, just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. That's just me. But and I love sports. not having sports is torturous to me. But I'm just being also realistic about this. This thing is bad, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer and really make. But that's just my opinion on it. And I just think that you're going to have a lot of players, a lot of managers who are going to be resistant, say, I do not want to play this season because I don't feel safe. So that's my concern about all that.
All right, let me look into the division a little bit, and let's talk about a little bit of intrigue. You had the Angels against San Francisco. Thankfully, the Angels did win, so Barry Bonds didn't get his ring. Hallelujah. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you also had the Dodgers, who played the Oakland A's a few times in the World Series. Remember, the Bash brothers were beaten by Kirk Gibson. And then, of course, the Texas Rangers took on San Francisco, and was a pretty good series, actually. And, but I think you're right, David. You talk about 5 teams in the state of California playing one another, and then you had the 2 Texas teams in there, and then the oddballs, Arizona, Colorado, and Seattle. So, to me, I think it's a very interesting division. I've always loved the Dodgers and the Angels anyways. I've had ties to both organizations, but still, I these divisions are proportioned appropriately when you look at all the rivalries from within, many of them in state. And definitely,
and that's exactly what they wanted to do.
Right.
If you look at this division, Scott, this is the one where they did this first and went backwards. They want to keep travel and consumption as low as possible. So they took all the Western teams that were already in division and added them together. It's a perfect mix.
No doubt about it. So Anything else you guys want to add to this?
Anything, Rick?
No, I'm good. I think we covered everything, and I just think we're going to have I think, like I said, hopefully we have a season. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, this division, and I think hopefully they can keep it around permanently. I think it causes it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of balance there. It's less traveling, and you got a lot of teams that are going to face each other that hate each other. So it's going to be a lot of fun. And I love seeing Oakland and San Francisco. Love seeing the Dodgers. Love seeing the Angels. Love seeing like Milwaukee or Minnesota. Love seeing all these cool rivalries. You got St. Louis there in the mix of the Midwest. So and Kansas City. So it's just a mixture of everybody, and you got some fun interstate rivalries right there. So hopefully they can keep this around permanently. I kind of like it.
Okay. Well,
I agree.
With that said. Okay, I'll let Rick lead off, and then I'm going to have some company things that we're going to address afterwards. So, Rick, how can people get a hold of you?
Well, you can contact us on our website. We're at www.charlottebats.com. Our email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com. I'm also on Facebook. We have a group page called Charlotte MLB. We also have another page called Charlotte Bats Baseball. We're also on Twitter at Charlotte Bats Baseball. We're on Instagram at Charlotte Bat, and I'm also on LinkedIn at Rick Curti. And you can always contact me through those social media venues. And again, my email address is cltbatsbaseball@gmail.com.
Go ahead, David.
Well, I'm not as profound as that, but I'll give you this. I write for fansided.com. I cover the Miami Marlins at Marlin Maniac, and I also cover the Jacksonville Jaguars at Black and Teal. I can be found on Twitter at DM719907.
Very good. All right, well, let me go over a few things here while we can on the network. We hope that you have an opportunity to enjoy all of our broadcasts. Sports Exchange is definitely a great broadcast that we have, our signature show. We have the South Florida Tribune podcast, which is a non-sports related show, and it features one of our shows on Monday night is a Me Monday broadcast with Lynn LaSalle, myself, and Candy Ebling, and we try to talk about the positive aspects of Monday. And Motorman and Rude Dog, we do that broadcast every once in a while with Rudy Reyes, and Rudy's a very good friend of mine. I know that we're looking forward to bringing him back in the not-so-distant future. The Real and the Rare with Xavier McKnight. The X-Man brings it to you, and I'll tell you what, you talk about an upcoming guy. Xavier McKnight is definitely it. And, of course, fantasy football with myself and Scott Ryan Skolrud. And you are listening to 108 Stitches Baseball Talk with the Motor City Mad Model Scott Morganroth, along with Rick Curti, who will probably be a regular on the show, and David Levin. So those are our lineup of shows. Now, in terms of how you can get a hold of us, we'll lead off with Twitter. You can reach me at Scoop, and then type in 533333. Just figure 53s. And our other page is at Tribune South on Twitter. We have a YouTube channel we'd like you to go out there and subscribe to. No charge, South Florida Tribune. On Facebook, please like our page at South Florida Tribune. We also have an Instagram page, you guessed it, South Florida Tribune. And on LinkedIn, you can find me at Scott Morganroth. Feel free to add me as a connection. I'll be more than happy to look forward to communicating with you. And at long last, we have our website, www.southfloridatribune.com. You'll find a lot of our broadcast on there. Contributors writing some of the columnists, and of course, and the affiliates columns with our media distribution partners. And if you want to email us, southfloridatribune@gmail.com gets it done. So, any other closing thoughts? I know the one thing we want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. We hope that we've been a good source of entertainment for you while you go through these issues right now. All you ask you to do is be safe, maintain social distancing, stay home. Don't take any chances. It's really not worth it. And as I said before, it's not worth taking any unnecessary chances. I know a lot of anxiety and apprehension will cause individuals to do the wrong thing. Save it. Anything else you guys want to add before we end it?
No, I really appreciated this. It's really nice talking to you, Rick. I really like the fact that we can sit here and talk about baseball. I know that all of us really want the game to come back and we enjoy it. But it's really important that we get things put into perspective where safety and health is more important than anything. As a fan, I want to be in the stands just like everybody else. I don't know if that's going to happen. But I really miss this game. And Scott knows from last week how much I love this game of baseball. I'm just hoping at some point, fans get back to the stands and really enjoy the national pastime.
Yeah, I agree. I had plans to go to High Point. They just built a stadium there a year ago to see the High Point Rockers. So I was all excited. They have a new stadium they're building in Gastonia, and I've been going to a lot of Charlotte Knights games at BB&T Ballpark, and I miss going to a game. I miss watching it, and I would love to see it, and we'll just have to see what happens. Just take it one day at a time, and we'll just, I just pray that we do have a season, because not having any sports, it stinks right now.
I should point out that these broadcasts can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google Podcasts, CastBox, Podcast Addict, Deezer, and a Podchaser. So there's a lot of different ways that you can hear all of our broadcasts. And again, reach out to us on the various social media. Any questions, we'll be more than happy to address that. So on behalf of Rick Curti and David Levin, my name is Scott Morgan, Roth Motor City Manmile. Thanking you for joining us here on 108 Stitches Baseball Talk. Good night, everybody, and have a great weekend.